Joining us from Sydney is Mary-Louise McLaws. She's a professor of epidemiology and an advisor to the World Health Organization. Professor, always great to have you on this news hour. We're seeing so many of these travel cancellations. So much of it is due to staff actually becoming infected. It really does speak to the high transmissibility of Omicron. But with New Year's just days away and people inevitably going to gather for this event, are you expecting to see a very rapid spike in infections?
Yes, good morning, Yashini. Absolutely. This is what we would call a super spreading event, and so is Christmas, regardless of what which religion that you have. Everyone loves Christmas because you have time off work, you meet with your friends and your family, and then with New Year's Eve around the world, particularly in places like the UK and the USA, they have very big celebrations with many people in public, and this would be a super spreading event. And I'll just remind everybody that in the UK, only 69% of people of the total population have been vaccinated, and about 50% have been boosted. And in the USA, it's lower at 61%, just 61%. So Dr. Fauci was absolutely correct in identifying that having these events would create a super spreading event, because not everybody is vaccinated and not everybody in America wears a mask. And I just ask everybody that's watching your news to please wear your mask over your nose, because Omicron and Delta can be caught with, aerosol spread, and these particles can hang in the air for longer, and you breathe them in and it hasn't gone through your mask to be filtered. You can acquire it, but you can also, if you have it, spread it. And I just remind you that in the UK, they have had 114,000 Omicron cases, and just last night they had over 120,000 cases. So I'm very pleased to hear that in London they've chosen to cancel this. And of course, in the USA, they've had about 8,000, which is interestingly low. But of course, all infections, mostly probably Delta with a bit of Omicron, just overnight they've had 37,000 cases. So it's very wise that they're cancelling these events.
Mm-hmm. Professor, despite these events being cancelled, despite the fear of Omicron and COVID-19, people are still going to travel. Let's face it, people are still going to get together to celebrate the new year, or at least hope that 2022 is going to be better than the last 2 years. What's your advice to those people who will be getting together, who will be traveling? You've spoken about the mask, but there must be other measures that they can take.
Yes. So the World Health Organization believes quite rightly that infection control is about multiple public health tools, and that includes not just masks, but testing and, of course, vaccination. So please think about getting rapid antigen testing kits and test before you want to travel, so that you're not placing yourself at risk of being unwell when you arrive, or spreading it in the aeroplane or however you're traveling. And also, if you're going to a social event or a sporting event, please test yourself before you go. But it's best to test yourself over several consecutive days, because you're looking to screen yourself accurately as not having the disease. And some of these tests are 100% accurate at identifying that you're not infected, but some have a level of about 98–99% accuracy, and that increases the more often that you test yourself. So if you're planning to go somewhere in 3 days' time, start testing now, so that you have a really good idea that you are definitely negative.
And Prof, you're in Australia, where they've just recorded the first Omicron-related death. The government, though, does seem to be choosing away from going back to those very, very tight restrictions. Australia had some of the toughest restrictions in the world. Do you think we're going to start slowly seeing more governments not so much going back to restrictions, but also looking at ways of now having to live with COVID-19, because really, I don't know how much longer people can live under restrictions and measures to try to stay safe when it's inevitable that another variant is going to come along.
Absolutely, Oisin. You know, as an epidemiologist, I'm not an economist, but it doesn't take an economist to work out that this has been going for a couple of years and the whole world is not coping very well, and particularly individuals who haven't been able to get a job. So they're hurting a lot. The one good thing is if you get vaccinated, even if your waning antibodies from that vaccine start going down after about 4.5, 5 months, and you want another booster, you potentially, even without that booster, won't get severe infection or death or potentially hospitalization, because there are other parts of your immune system that get switched on when you're exposed to the virus, and that's your T cells. So that can be good news. If it's Omicron and if it's true that it is less severe than Delta and it is really mild, then that's good news as well. However, you don't want to catch it because you could be giving it to others who, of course, get very sick. They could have cancer or an immune problem. So we need to be very mindful about being sensible. So we need to get double vaccinated. We need to use the rapid antigen test, and we need to ask people to wear a mask when they're shopping, particularly, going indoors. So we in the Southern Hemisphere enjoy getting together in the summertime, and we need to think about how many people we know definitely have had their vaccine within the last 4 or 5 months. That means they're well protected and less likely to have infection, although they still can have asymptomatic infection. So test, wear a mask, hand hygiene, and also get the ventilation of the shops, the restaurants, and your home really high, because Delta and Omicron are potentially more airborne spread, particularly Omicron, because interestingly, it looks as if it has the ability to have a charge, a positive and a negative charge, which means that it can attract saliva and lung fluid and then have a little bubble of these molecules around it and stops it from drying out and can hang in the air and be alive and be infectious potentially for a bit longer. So airflow change is really important as well.
Professor Mary-Louise McLaws, always great to get your advice. Thank you so much.
So it's a pleasure to be with you. Be safe.